Hi, this is Charlie with Box and Focus, and a few thoughts on the rather anticlimactic rubber match between Rios and Alvarado. I said I liked what I saw coming out of Rios' camp, and so it transpired. He looked fantastic at the weigh-in. By Rios standards, he looked amazing. Definition, very defined jaw, muscle definition, sort of. He looked comfortable. He didn't look like he'd had problems making weight. He didn't look particularly drained. Just all the benefits of training professionally. And hopefully it's something that he sticks to. But it wasn't just the way he looked at the weigh-in, the way he performed. I mean, the head movement was very, very good. When was the last time we could say that Brandon Rios had good head movement? I can't even remember. I cannot even remember watching a Brandon Rios fight and seeing him moving his head, bending at the knees, looking at different angles. Basically, made it very hard for Alvarado to be able to pick a shot, which in part explained why Alvarado threw hardly any punches in the fight, because Rios was never standing there for Alvarado to aim at. He was constantly either moving or attacking, or often doing both. And you could see the benefits of being much fitter as well. Energetic, light on his feet. He was covering a lot of distance when he was coming in with punches. He was just that's the potential that Brandon Rios has, and I've always believed in Brandon Rios. I've been a bit disappointed with the direction he's gone recently, but it shows that he's just not been training properly. And when he does train properly, he's a phenomenal fighter. Perhaps not good enough to beat Pacquiao, which wasn't what Robert Garcia said. He got misrepresented slightly. He said Rios would give Pacquiao a hell of a fight now in that condition, and he would have given Pacquiao a much better fight in that condition. But anyway, mythical rematches aside, let's concentrate on the one that did happen. Alvarado, as good as Rios looked, Alvarado looked bad, and again, it comes down to training. Alvarado obviously hadn't trained properly. He didn't look in bad shape, but he didn't look in fighting shape. And with that comes self-belief, or lack of it. And I think that played a part in he basically decided to retire on his stool. He's getting a bit of flack from a lot of fans who are saying that he basically lied, that he deliberately said the wrong number of fingers to the doctor. I don't think he actually did. There's a lot of people who haven't really been hit hard before in life. Things happen when you get hit hard. I remember once I got heel kicked on the temple, and the force of the impact, it temporarily deformed my eye, and I was seeing, I was basically forcibly cross-eyed for the next 5 minutes whilst my eye regained its shape. It's very uncomfortable, it's very disorientating, it's very, you're wondering, do I stop? You start second guessing everything. Basically consumes you. It's not a very pleasant feeling at all. And I think I actually sat out the next round of sparring until it worked itself out. When you're in the middle of a big war like that, I believe probably something like that happened to Alvarado. So I don't think he actually lied. I think he probably was seeing 4 fingers, but at the same time, I think he knew it, and I think he knew it was actually 2 fingers. So I think he didn't have the self-belief anymore, because he knew that he hadn't trained properly. He knew he wasn't fighting fit, and he knew he was getting his ass whooped. And he was hurting, he took a solid beating for 3 rounds, and he probably was thinking, right, now I can't see properly. Because it's not something at the time you think, you don't have this I'm talking about the temporary injury that I suffered. You're not able to analyse it quickly in real time. So when something like that happens, you're thinking, has something seriously gone wrong? Could it be a broken bone? Could it be, whatever? You don't know. Mike Alvarado's not a doctor. He doesn't have a medical degree to fall back upon when assessing what's going on in the middle of a fight. He's just thinking, crap, I can't see properly, and I'm suffering an ass whooping, and I've not trained properly, and I'm not fighting fit. Of course he wanted to quit on his stool at that point, because that fight was only going one way, and he didn't believe in himself that he could turn it around. So, it was probably the right thing for the fight to be stopped. What do the fans want to see? Do they want to see the guy seriously hurt? Because he was going to get seriously hurt. He was going to suffer. I mean, he was suffering a beating already, and if that was dragging on over the next 3 or 4 rounds, it's going to have long-term consequences for Alvarado's health. So I don't know. I was kind of happy to see the fight stop, because it was a bit of a sad sight watching him get beat up. But at the same time, fans paid the money. They want to see blood. I kind of understand that. It's the position you put yourself in as a prize fighter. They want to see you give your all. But Alvarado's done. I think that's his career over. He obviously can't control himself outside of the ring, and therefore can't dedicate himself to training enough to be able to execute a good enough fight game inside the ring. So on top of that, he's 34, he's got a lot of miles on the clock, he's taken some hellacious beatings, and he's probably just not got it in him anymore. He's probably deluding himself that he thinks he has, but if he comes back, he'll lose again, in my opinion, unless it's against a very soft opponent. Brandon Rios, on the other hand, he just opened some doors. He showed us a long way for him to go yet. He just has to maintain the discipline that he showed coming into this fight. They talked about altitude training and the preparations for that. It sounded like he'd been really professional in his preparation, and if he can continue to do that, he can go far. I mean, you've got to bear in mind, he's only lost twice. Okay, he has a draw as well. I forget who the draw is against, but it was a draw against Chavez. No, Chavez won that by disqualification. I forget who the draw is against, but anyway, lost twice, once to Manny Pacquiao, once to Alvarado, who he's beaten twice, and showed that when he's properly on top of his game, he's miles ahead of Mike Alvarado. I don't think Alvarado ever stood a chance in that fight. I don't think if Alvarado had trained clinically and not been in trouble in his personal life and had his full focus on the fight, I still think he's going to lose that fight. It's going to be more entertaining. It's going to be probably a classic fight, but looking at the shape of Rios and the way he was fighting, I mean, he was doing everything right, and I just think that Alvarado could only have survived longer as opposed to being able to turn that around. So who do we want to see Rios fight? He's talking about Victor Ortiz. Brandon Rios decapitates Victor Ortiz. He beats him up and takes his head off. I watched Victor Ortiz's most recent fight just because I'd read about it, and Victor Ortiz is one of the most talented guys, but he's got so many flaws. Because he's so talented, he's just gotten by with them, and then he gets to the top of the food chain, and he can't get by with those flaws anymore. Like every single time he throws his left hand, so he throws his left hand, his right hand goes bump down to his hip. You watch that Perez fight, every single time his right hand goes right down to his hip. Rios was using the left hook all the time versus Alvarado. He'll just jump in and land big shots straight on Victor Ortiz's jaw. I mean, it's just that simple. Ortiz also has a habit of when he's in the pocket throwing punches, he lifts his head up so his jaw's out, and he was doing that against Perez as well. Wide open to the huge counters that certain Josito Lopez was landing on him, the ones that broke his jaw. Still not learned about that. I mean, Ortiz has just got so many holes in his boxing skills, and yet he gets by purely on talent and the fact that he's physically so strong and hits hard and is quite determined when he fights. But you know, that only gets you so far, and every time he's gotten to the top level, he's been exposed because of the flaws in his game. So at this point in time, Brandon Rios, that's quite an easy fight for him, unfortunately for Victor Ortiz. The other names mentioned, Provodnikov, that would be a superb fight. Brandon Rios, Provodnikov, would love to see that. Somebody was talking about Timothy Bradley. A good fight, would like to see that. Don't think it's the greatest fight for Brandon Rios just yet, because Bradley is slippery, he's hard to hit, he's very technically sound, so, and he's always in great shape. But you know, there's going to be some good fights for Brandon Rios coming up, and he can go quite far. This version of Brandon Rios, I'd actually be interested, and I know this will sound stupid, I would actually be interested in seeing that version of Brandon Rios in against Floyd Mayweather. I think he would just give him a hard time. I think he's got a much more varied attack than Marcos Maidana. I think he's technically much better than Marcos Maidana, and yeah, he's just great in when he's on the inside, which Maidana's not very good on the inside. Maidana's just kind of like, I don't know, he kind of loops these punches in at a strange angle, and they're just not that effective. Whereas Brandon Rios is constantly going on the body and the uppercut, and around the top and through the middle, always from different angles, and he combination punches really well, and it's just very, very exciting to think that he's actually on top of himself in terms of his dedication and knowing what he's got to do in the ring. I mean, the head movement, honestly, that the difference that makes in a fighter, the difference that makes is so much, because it isn't just a defensive weapon, it's also an offensive weapon. I was saying before, you know, it kind of freezes your opponent, and it was freezing Alvarado. Rios is coming in, slipping side to side, you know, looking up and down, bending at the waist, and Alvarado's freezing because he doesn't know where to punch, because he's about to punch, then Rios moves, and it's confusing, and especially for a fighter that's slightly off his game, that confusion is paralysing. It really is, and you saw that on Saturday night. Anyway, so quite a lot to talk about, considering what a farce it was in the end, but there you go. Such things happen in life. Hopefully Mike Alvarado gets his stuff together and gets himself back on the right track, but unfortunately for him, it's not looking promising. Rumours of substance abuse abound. Don't know. He wasn't sounding great before the fight. He certainly wasn't sounding great after it. Anyway, best of luck to him, and best of luck to Brandon Rios, and looking forward to seeing where he goes next. This is Charlie with Boxing Focus.